One of the things that you point out in the report is that there is a consensus right now in policymaking circles that we're in this systemic competition, we have the strategic rivalry, but there's no benchmark for assessing exactly what that means or where it's going. And that's a huge problem for companies that are trying to persuade policymakers to help them with what their problems actually are, rather than this blizzard of policy proposals that maybe won't make the relationship work better. I think that what's nice about Pathfinder is that it illuminates market realities that companies are actually facing, and it provides that tool for policymakers to be able to have guidance as well as a grounded conversation about their policy options.
In finance, compared to 10 years ago, we have a much more diverse financial system in China, a lot more players. But when we look at concrete metrics here, we see that still today, 70% of all bank assets in China are under the management of state-related financial institutions. For comparison, in the OECD average, that would be single digits, 9% average of all assets. And if you took Germany out, it would be much lower than 9%, I have to say. So, very, very different still in terms of that. I would note in terms of debt issuance, commercial bond issuance by companies in China, presently 94% of all debt issuance is by state-owned enterprises. We only have very little bit of room left over for private companies to access debt markets.
On that GDP chart that you shared, which showed the range between a modest slowdown, that's the IMF scenario, with China's GDP growth trending down from 6% to 5% to probably around 4% at the end of the decade, and that PBOC stress test scenario, which shows China's growth dropping substantially down to 2%. I think clearly what we're seeing with Evergrande and with the China property sector right now is a vivid reminder that a sharp slowdown in China's economy is a real possibility. There is no sector which is more important to China than real estate. By some calculations, real estate drives 20%, maybe even more, of China's GDP. So if we see a default by Evergrande, if we see trouble spilling over to other property developers, if we see a sustained drop in sales and construction and house prices, then we could very well be looking at a marked slowdown in China's growth.
As the China Pathfinder report notes, while China has made great strides to move towards market economy norms over the past decade, much remains to be done, and we hope in time will be done. China has been extraordinarily successful in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of extreme poverty over the past 40 to 50 years. We see opportunity to pursue further reforms, which would help secure further improvements in living standards for the Chinese people.